Alexander's a bit annoyed with me. I said I bought a sofa just like that at the weekend.
To the right.
So he was doing very well. Nice sofa.
Did you buy a three-piece suite or just the sofa?
Are you really interested?
Well, it's a lot of green velvet, a three-piece suite, isn't it?
I had 3 and then a corner unit. No. Modular.
Got a new carpet.
We're trying to make a jacket out of it, are we?
Good evening and welcome to Have I Got News for You? I'm Alexander Armstrong. In the news this week, in Middlesbrough, one woman regrets absent-mindedly ticking the water birth option on her NHS birth plan. In London, the producers of a local news programme begin to regret the anti-drugs item showing addicts how to... Oh, God, you see, look at that. I'm sorry.
That's all right. If you forget it next time, it's written up there for you.
Oh, that's good.
Then there's no chance of making any mistake, Ben. Have they offered you countdown? Have you signed? Have you signed?
No.
You haven't signed?
I haven't signed.
Do you think you should have signed before you did tonight's programme? They might go, oh, no, forget it.
You can't sign, he hasn't got all the letters yet.
Oh, yeah.
In London, the producers of a local news programme begin to regret the anti-drugs item showing how addicts heat up heroin. And the Mayor of London's Chief Health and Safety Officer demonstrates Boris Johnson's latest proposal for what Londoners should do in the event of a flood. On Ian Hislop's team tonight is a comedian whose first TV appearance in 1992 contained such crude material it prompted 131 complaints from viewers, including Edwina Curry, who was so shocked she could hardly undo John Major's flies. Please welcome Frank Skinner. And with Paul Merton tonight is a political journalist from The Mirror who, when asked about Peter Mandelson's return to the Cabinet, said, "What a terrible stunt." What a terrible stunt. Yes, please welcome Kevin Maguire. In round one, we cover the bigger stories of the week. Ian and Frank, take a look at this.
That could be part of a yacht, I'm guessing.
Corfu, that isn't part of a yacht.
I believe that's the Shadowed Chancellor.
Oh, yeah, who's that, then?
But he's trying to get noticed. It's David Cameron.
Oh, and there's Mandy. Anything to do with you, Peter? No.
Very happy.
It's fantastic to have him back, though, isn't it? The terrible stunt. As soon as he's back, everything just falls apart. There's scandal, there's sleaze, there's filth, there's trouble. Why would you not like him? The whole lid has been lifted, hasn't it, on this Corfu jet set. A world that looks like a Bond movie. Dubious Russians, wealthy financiers, public school boys, Tories, Mandelson, the perfect villain.
Was that a cat? Get a bit sure with him. Not you, Peter Mandelsson.
It seems that George Osborne let it be known that Peter Mandelson had been on a billionaire's yacht. Like kids at school when they say, I saw Dave Edgar in the biology lab at lunchtime, and they say, how do you know he was in there? And he'd go, oh, I was there as well. I imagine that George Osborne has two kinds of friends, the haves and the have-yachts. Also, the Russian was described as an aluminium magnet. I didn't think you could have an aluminium.
Well, what I love about Mandelson coming back, though, and you can see he has learned something over the last 4 years, is he's causing trouble not just for Labour, he's causing for the Tories. When it was the first time that's ever happened.
But it is brilliant. You know, he was an EU commissioner. He was making decisions about aluminium, which is where this Russian makes his fortune. So it's a pretty shocking story. This week, no one cares. Oh, yeah, Mandy, obviously he was up to no good, but look at the Tories. And everybody in this story is so rich. Osborne, the man they were staying with, Nathaniel Rothschild.
He sounds rich, doesn't he, with that surname?
He's got a personal fortune of something like £900 trillion. No, I've made that up.
Could you write that down?
But the idea that they wouldn't just say to each other, you got 50,000.
But to be honest, if you met a Russian billionaire, I think he's got something like 94 billion. You'd be tempted at some point to say, "Gives 50 grand. Come on. What difference does it make to you?" It's like saying to someone, "Can I have a quid for the meter?" Isn't it? What does he get?
Who is the aluminium magnate?
Oleg Deripaska.
Oleg, and here he is. Here's a picture of him.
It doesn't look at all sinister, does it? It looks like that advert for underarm deodorant that's on the telly at the moment.
Could he only afford to pay for half a photograph?
So who actually was on Deripaska's yacht?
George Osborne with his dad, Ozzy. Mandelson was there, and there was another guy, a high-up Tory, who basically organises all the fundraising.
Andrew Feldman.
Who?
Andrew Feldman.
Really? Do you know him?
Yeah, no.
He's
Yes,
party.
yes, no. Is he going to be on Countdown with you? Is he? Dictionary Corner. There's a lot of different letters in Russian, you know.
Yeah.
But what did the Russian billionaire stand to gain from this?
Nothing, which is why he didn't give them any money.
Oh, that makes sense.
It's not like Bernie Ecclestone or something, where you give the money and you obviously get something back.
I thought with the aluminium he might have been offered the Javelin franchise at the London Olympics.
The Tories gain nothing from it except looking incredibly stupid.
Osborne has, of course, denied attempting to solicit a donation or suggesting that it could be channelled through a British company. So what's the problem, then?
Osborne and this man who hosted them all, Nathaniel Rothschild, are friends. They were at Oxford together. They were in the Bullingdon. There's a marvellous photograph of them in frock coats. Have we got that?
The picture of he's standing on those steps looking like he's desperate to whip something.
Here it is.
That's not the real picture.
That's not the real picture. Here it is.
Are we waiting for someone to invent television? What's happening?
Maybe it's not that.
Somebody's drawing it even as we speak.
They
Tracing paper.
Oh, later. We'll do it later. Okay.
Later.
Sorry. Can we do it again?
If we've been good.
What caused the spat, then, between Osborne and Rothschild?
Oh,
What's
because Nathaniel, he said, well, you know, he's broken the conventions. He's discussed something that happened at a private meeting. You can't do this. How else can we run the world? No, you know. So he's sort of said, I'm really angry about it, and if George Osborne keeps saying that my account is wrong, I shall produce evidence to show I'm right. Is a rival show being made? If we don't get any more laughs, we shift off and loose women come on one by one. I don't know about you girls, but have you seen Brad Pitt?
Matt Rothschild once reneged on a gentleman's agreement we had for him to buy me a baked potato. When he was head of the Bullingdon, I was head of a thing called the Athenaeum at Cambridge, which is much better. The only one thing we had to do every year, we had a shooting match against the Bullingdon.
Right.
Do they have to wear targets? Let them off in the woods.
And in order to field a team so the event could actually go ahead, I had to get my brother to come and shoot for us and a couple of others.
Yeah. Off the street?
Ex-Athenaeum men, of course. And the agreement was that whoever lost would buy lunch for everyone else. Yeah. And Nat came up and said he refused to pay because we'd brought in a couple of other people who weren't...
So a Rothschild, probably the richest person in the universe...
refused to pay...
...would buy a baked potato.
Sorry, we need to stop the baked potato anecdote. We've got the photograph. The photograph's coming. It's here. Has he had some stitches? Because he's wearing one of those things they give to dogs when they come out of the vest. Is he not allowed to scratch his ears for 3 months or so? Look at the look of absolute contempt for anybody that isn't George Osborne. no change there, then.
Yeah. When he was in the Bullingdon Club, he was known as Oik. That was his nickname, because he didn't go to Eton. He went to St Paul's, which is £1,000 a year cheaper.
So what goes on at the Bullingdon Club, then?
They get incredibly drunk, trash restaurants, then pay for it afterwards and apologise.
You were in Oxford, Ian. Did you ever come across the Bullingdon crowd?
Yes, one occasionally saw them across a field.
From your quadrangle window?
Yes, out they were, hooraying and throwing up.
Weren't you anything to do with anything a bit like that? Didn't you have sort of Piers Gaveston connections, or...?
I went to the Piers Gaveston Society, which is completely different. That was a sort of...
Was Piers there? Or was Gaveston there? Or?
Piers Gaveston...
I'm trying to make conversation on something I know nothing about.
No, you're doing well. Yes, I occasionally went to those parties, but they were nothing like the Bullingdon's parties.
There was a thing in The Guardian today about George Osborne. It said that one of these Bullingdon Club meetings, he apparently was held by the ankles and banged on the head, and he was asked the question every time, what are you? And when he got the answer wrong, he was banged on the head. And apparently the right answer was, I am despicable.
I'm despicable, yeah.
And they stopped banging him on the head.
Was that by trial and error, do you think? He just had to say everything until...
He might have been going on for about a week before he hit on that one.
Maybe
I am semi-conscious.
How's Peter Mandelson reacted to all these relevations? Can't even speak.
Relevations? You've got the consonants the wrong way round. It's not going to work on Countdown, is it?
That's an 11-letter word as well. It's no good to you.
That's no
You've
good.
gone beyond the frame.
How's Peter Mandelson reacted to these revelations about Osborne?
With immense sobriety. He's been laughing for days. He can't believe his luck. There he was in the frame, and he found Osborne dared to take him on. And if you're going to take on someone, don't take on Mandelson, not if it's a being unpleasant contest. Because he's going to win.
Here's Mandy on Tuesday.
I like the way that Oleg is also an oligarch.
It's only one vowel difference, isn't it?
But it sounds like a fabulous cartoon character, Oleg the oligarch. I don't even know what an oligarch... What is an oligarch? Oh, you went to public school, for God's sake. What is it?
Well, I think it actually means ruled by an elite.
Does it?
Yes, it's from the Greek word oligos. Somebody's just handed me a piece of paper with it written.
You got any views on Mandelson, Kevin?
Oh, no, brilliant having him back, isn't it? Because we can look forward to the third resignation.
But you and he don't really get on, do you?
No, I think that's fair enough, but...
Because there was a rumour you were going to be the next spin doctor for Gordon Brown.
Yeah, it was a wrong rumour, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I wonder where I read it.
Probably in private eye.
Do you want to see another politician under a bit of pressure this week?
No, I'm fine, thanks.
You do. Here is South African politician Unkla Nene.
What they're hearing is that a place and a point for them to raise that, or is it a done deal by the time Trevor Manuel?
It's actually an opportunity for members of Parliament to actually digest and go through the documentation that is going to be presented to the public, and the opportunity for proper engagement is actually after the tabling of the.
There are certain times when that is the funniest joke in the world. Falling over.
Did he cross Peter Mandelson too?
It looks a bit like a Halifax advert.
And then the bank collapses.
Howard has got fat on the profit.
He stopped singing too.
This is the news that George Osborne is fighting for his political career after allegations that he solicited donations from a Russian oligarch. According to one political commentator, Osborne is in trouble because he broke the age-old rule, what happens on holiday stays on holiday. Which is why the world will never know how much Gordon Brown paid for that donkey ride on Southwold Beach. The original claims centre around a select gathering.
Gathering, yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah, no, be confident, it is gathering. Yeah. They haven't changed the pronunciation of the words since you were last out and about. It's not become gathering or anything. Or gathering. Still very much as you thought it would be. Yeah.
OK. The original claims centre around a select gathering...
Yeah, that was all right,
That's
wasn't
good.
it?
That's good. I got it now. The original claims centre around a select gathering in a Corfu taverna, which included Lord Mandelson, George Osborne, Elizabeth Murdoch, Nathaniel Rothschild and Jack and Doreen Henderson from Dudley, who came over to warn them not to order the moussaka. George Osborne strenuously denies the allegations, but says he won't be taking legal action. Obviously, there are a good many reasons why he won't be suing his old college chum: the friendship, the awkwardness, the cost, the verdict. Although George Osborne denies that any such conversations took place, Nat Rothschild claims he has a witness, described in the Times as a witness with impeccable Wall Street credentials. Which presumably means he's out of work and available for daytime court appearances. Paul and Kevin, here is yours.
Oh, yes, of course, America, Obama. And that's Powell, who's come out in favour of him, which surprised some. That's Saddam Hussein walking next to him there. Did you see Saddam Hussein walking next to Colin Powell? That's Sarah Palin, that's the McCains, I think. So this is basically the American election. It hasn't happened yet, but it's not looking good for the Republicans.
That's good.
Yeah. If that's good, it's not looking good for Republicans?
I think it is good, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think we're agreed. I think Obama is a...
You won't allow these little political discussions on Countdown, you know. You have to be strictly neutral. You can't come out and say, I hate the Democrats, like you've just done. Or was it the Republicans? I wasn't really paying much attention. But Saddam Hussein was walking beside him just then. They could have saved a lot of money. If you show that bit again, you'll see, it's next to Colin Powell, you'll see Saddam Hussein. They could have saved themselves a fortune. Look, look, he's walking right next to him.
He's got fat since he was hung.
Lack of exercise.
Why has Obama taken a few days off campaigning?
He's got a sick grandmother.
He has,
Yes,
yes.
It shows, A, he's so far ahead he doesn't care, he can take a few days off. B, his grandmother is white, which helps. No, I am just saying there is a certain resistance among some American voters, what they call the Bradley effect, to his candidacy. People say, yeah, I'm going to vote for Obama. Oh, McCain. Yeah. So they think this will counter that. So it's been perceived as a very good move.
And he's going to have some...
Colin Powell has really messed things up for him this week. He's got the white gran. Oh, no, I've got a black mate. How serious is the gran? I mean, if she died the day before the election or something, what would happen then?
Well, I think she's got a postal vote, so it's all right.
One US political pundit wrote, "The timing of this isn't ideal, although the image of a doting grandson with his grandmother isn't exactly harmful." They're cynical, aren't they, these Americans? Blair, he put his dying granny on a mug.
And sell her to Bernie Ecclestone.
What are Obama supporters being encouraged to do at Halloween?
Go around McCain's house going, whoa!
Slightly bizarrely, they're being asked to carve pumpkins in the shape of their candidate. Let's have a look. There's one. John McCain was asked about the possibility of defeat. He said, "Don't feel sorry for John McCain." I won't. Actually, although watching this, it's hard not to. Here he is in Western Pennsylvania.
Senator Obama's supporters have been saying some pretty nasty things about Western Pennsylvania lately. And you know, I couldn't agree with them more. I couldn't disagree with you. I couldn't agree with you more.
The McCain campaign has become increasingly desperate, though. Recently, they've been attacking Obama in various headlines, such as Obama in vote registration fraud, Obama a friend of terrorists, and surely the most damaging of all, Boris backs. Meanwhile, what's Sarah Palin been up to this week?
She's bought more clothes. They've had more clothes bought for her, rather.
There she is.
She has tattooed lips. There was a scandal about her eyes.
Tattooed lips?
Yeah.
Well, where are her real lips? In a drawer
In Alaska.
for an emergency.
It's been widely reported on all the political blogs that Sarah Palin's lip liner is tattooed on.
Who would you have tattooed?
Oh, I don't know. Richard Whiteley, I don't know.
Richard Whiteley. The man you elbowed out of the way so your show business career could be pursued to its highest heights. It's always been a bit mysterious. He's deaf, wasn't it? This won't go out, obviously. Well, it might do, considering what the rest of the programme's like. I won't make jokes about dead Richard Whiteley, no, it doesn't seem right.
Where does Sarah Palin come from?
Alaska?
Would you?
I'm now permanently associated with that joke.
Say something about Richard Whiteley and they'll cut this bit.
Murderer!
Yes, this is the ongoing race for the White House. Obama is now so far ahead in the polls that most Americans are asking, will it be a landslide, or will the CIA find another even more ingenious way to kill him? Barack Obama has taken time out to visit his sick grandmother. Not a stunt that John McCain can pull, as his granny died with Custer at the Battle of Little Bighorn. Meanwhile, the Governor of the Bank of England, Mervyn King, this week announced it now seems likely that the UK economy is entering a recession. He also expressed fears about Madonna's marriage and warned that Amy Winehouse may be dabbling in drugs. According to the Mail, 2/3 of city workers expect to get a bonus this year, and the other one doesn't. And so to round two, a new round I've just invented, the jigsaw of news. Fingers on buzzers. Buzz when you know the story. What's the hand there? Yes, yeah, Frank.
There's been adverts on buses by Christians saying stuff about God being nice and that.
That's exactly right.
And atheists are going to, led by Richard Dawkins, inevitably, are going to put things on the bus that say, I think it says there is no God.
No, it says there is probably no God.
They're
sort of slightly indecisive atheists.
Yes, and where are these slogans going to appear?
On the side of buses.
On the side of bendy buses. Now,
Really?
they do move in a mysterious way. I just wanted to bring in Arian Shireen, because she has hatched the plan. She was annoyed by the Christian
I thought that was
slogans.
a couple you knew. A couple of friends of mine, Harry and Shireen, who I met.
Arian Shireen, she hatched the plans, annoyed by the Christian adverts appearing on the sides of London buses. She told The Guardian some buses carry notices proclaiming eternal damnation to passengers. Yes, like 159 to Croydon. Anyway, how have Christian
when I was
churches...
a kid,
yeah.
when I went on a bus with my mum as a kid, I had like a stick-on steering wheel that I used to put on the back of the seat, and I used to drive the bus for the whole thing. And I was thinking, if I did that now as an adult, in the back end of a bendy bus, people would just be that bit worried if I was controlling the latter half.
Stops at different places.
This is the new advertising campaign on London buses, which is being funded by atheists. The campaign features the slogan, "There's probably no God." More to the point, there's probably no bus. It's not exactly clear what purpose the ads will serve, but being told that there is no God might just make a chap think twice before blowing himself up on the top deck. Fingers on buzzers, teams.
Sustained ooh. Excellent.
Next.
It's Paul McCartney's head. It's his waxwork head that was found by a tramp on a train in Reading.
That's right, yes, it is.
Somebody said, we've lost Paul McCartney's head, there's a £10,000 reward, and this tramp was using it as a duvet. The reason why I was confused is because it doesn't look anything like Paul McCartney.
You think Heather Mills' leg's going to turn up somewhere?
This is the waxwork head of Paul No, this is the waxwork head of Paul McCartney. It was lost by the auctioneer who was about to auction it, Joby Carter. Using your knowledge of Beatles songs, how do you think Mr. Carter, the auctioneer, described the loss?
Magical mystery auction.
You have to give us at least 10 minutes on this.
Yeah, we need a bit of warning on this. Yeah. We'll come back to us later on.
OK. Should we see a picture of the tramp who found it?
Yeah.
It looks like a very noble picture of the Crankies.
Go see the rest of the Beatles?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
From Louis Two Swords.
Is that Tony Blair at the front?
No, it's Anne Diamond on the left.
We
According
can
to
wax work it
research-
out. We can wax work it out.
Go wax work it out.
Completely new topic. According to research at the University of Illinois, which record is best to perform cardiopulmonary resuscitation to?
Eye of the Tiger. Boom, boom, boom.
Is it Beat It?
I know this.
I left my heart in the outpatients department.
It's Staying Alive by the Bee Gees.
It is, yeah. And why?
Because you go, whether you're a mother or whether it's the right timing for the...
That's right, yes. It contains almost.
Staying alive, staying alive. Staying alive!
That's exactly right. It's almost exactly the 100 chest compressions per minute, as recommended by the American Heart Association.
It's 103, I think, Staying
It
Alive.
is, it is, 103 BPM.
How do you know that?
Occasionally, I like to stop and start my own heart, just, just to see if I can.
It passes the time. It makes an afternoon just go by really quick.
It's a lot better than Countdown.
Yeah, exactly.
There must have been a few hearts stopped during the audience watching Countdown.
Countdown.
surely.
Well, that
Go
boom,
for
boom,
years.
boom.
Yeah. That wouldn't go that, would it?
This is the waxwork head of Sir Paul McCartney, which on its way to an auction was left in a box on a train by the auctioneer. Since foolishly leaving the valuable item on a train, he's had several messages of sympathy and one job offer from MI5. The waxwork head was eventually found by a homeless man at Reading railway station who's now claimed his £2,000 reward. Not the first time Paul McCartney has been picked up by a tramp who then made a lot of money out of it. Fingers on buzzers.
I just saw the amusing thing of buzzing when all I could see was blue sky. The hand of God eating it or something.
Yes. There we
Paul and
are.
Kevin.
Well,
That's an ostrich. In a sandwich.
Yep.
did these mean anything, these? Or is it just sort of for show?
I buzzed ages ago.
Well, last week you buzzed.
Yeah.
Well, I knew you were going to do that, so I buzzed 5 days before the series began. They're selling... Ostrich meat is very cheap, and they're saying to
just said
people...
that.
Well, yes, I'm watching the repeat. Ostrich meat is... Ostrich meat is very cheap, it's very tender, it's very lovely. Don't have the neck, you'll be there all day. But if you have a bit of wing, it'll be all right. The only trouble is trying to get the ostrich stuck in the bread, because they're fast little buggers.
Is it the world's biggest ostrich sandwich?
It's exactly what it is, Kevin. This is Iran's temporary delay to its nuclear weapons programme as it attempts to make the world's biggest ostrich sandwich at 1.5 kilometres.
1.5 kilometre sandwich.
That's right, yeah. Just to break a world record. But they couldn't measure it because the crowd just surged through the barriers and ate the sandwich. On the plus side, they do still hold the record for hanging homosexuals, so...
The homosexuals were often ostracised. 3 claps, though. I've got a crowd, they're just quite select.
Has anyone eaten ostrich? You eaten it?
I've eaten it, yeah.
Is it good?
It is quite good, yeah.
It's not particularly fatty, so it's as a meat, it's reasonably good to eat. It's not particularly fatty meat.
What does it taste like? Chicken?
Ostrich, really.
Stupid
The bit I had was very much like ostrich.
Right.
It's like duck.
It's like what?
Big duck.
Big duck.
Yeah.
I didn't like big
It
duck.
was a bit like duck. It was red, like duck, I seem to think.
That was an ostrich what you had. Sounds like somebody gave you a big red duck. Tell him it's an ostrich.
There's been another bird-related story in Iran this week.
There's been
Wanna
another
see
what?
that?
A bird-related
Bird-related
story.
In Iran this week, yeah, I'd guess there probably would be at least 2 bird-related stories in Iran every week.
Pigeons flies into shop window.
Pigeons, yeah, well, nearly got it. Yeah, Iranian security
That's
forces...
become a story.
Security forces arrested 2 pigeons thought to be spying on a nuclear facility. Maybe they were plotting a coup. No. According to the Telegraph, some metal rings and invisible strings were attached to the bird, suggesting that it might have somehow been communicating what it had seen. Yes, they're making a massive ostrich sandwich now. On the subject of world record attempts,
yes.
Guess which record this man's just broken?
Has he,
It's the snail on face record.
That's right, yes.
Is it as easy as that? You only need 9.
You know, Alistair Galpin, he broke the world record this week for attaching 8 snails on his face for a minute. He smashed the previous record of 7. Mr. Galpin has already broken more than 27 records for feats including the longest handshake, 9 hours, blowing out the most candles in one breath, 144, most rubber bands worn on head, 66, gluing the most rhinestones to his body, 31,680, cucumber snapping, 75 times a minute. He now holds the world record for being the person you'd least like to be cornered by in a pub. Yes, this is Iran's attempt to be taken seriously on the world stage by making the biggest ever ostrich sandwich. Even though the sandwich was prepared outdoors, Iranian food hygiene laws are very strict, as are their other laws, hence all those signs saying, now wash your hand. Thanks to the ostrich sandwich scoop, the Metro newspaper had to relegate some of the more important stories of the week to its inside pages. Stories such as chili thief in frozen shrimp trouser heist, my 6 years of agony over a meat pie, heroin addict elephant can never go home, and free newspaper somehow still overpriced. Round 3 now, a connection question for you. What do these 3 have in common? John Prescott, Abby Titmuss, and the Cornish Liberation Army.
Is this to do with pies or pasties?
No.
Right. Is it to do with class?
No.
Is it to do with... No. Abby Titmuss used to be a nurse who went out with John Leslie, and there's a video on the internet of her involved in sexual stuff. Not with the Cornish Liberation Army, I don't think.
Is there a video of John Prescott on the internet, on YouTube?
Well, there probably is, but not like the one of Abby Titmuss.
Give us a clue that might help.
Crowd
Like the
control. Turnout.
Crowd
To
control.
do with turnout.
Oh, book signings. It's John Prescott had a book signing, not many people turned up. Abby Titmuss had a book signing, not many people turned up. The Cornish Liberation Front had a book signing, not many people turned up. That's the connection between them all.
I think you'll get a point for that, yes. They have all... They have all...
Brilliant, though.
You're nearly there. They've all suffered miserable turnouts at promotional events. So, yeah. John Prescott was recently promoting his book on the QE2 when he was a guest for the luxury ship's farewell tour of British waters. Here he is, hard at work on the cruise. His wife Pauline, very happy there. Actually, it was his hand on his crotch. He'd sold just 7 copies of his book during the entire voyage.
So he's doubled his sales. I mean, that's not bad, is it?
If no one turns up to something on the QE2, it's going pretty bad. It's not like they've got other places to go other than the QE2.
Oh, there's cinemas, ballrooms, aquariums...
The sea.
Golf courses.
Well, I've done it down.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
And actually, you could just jump overboard.
Defending Gordon Brown recently, who did Prescott compare him to?
Napoleon.
No, oh, God, that was the captain of the Titanic.
That's right,
Brilliant,
yes.
Prescott. Always gets it wrong.
Yes. BBC News reporter David Thompson said, as ever with John Prescott, you know exactly what he meant. It's just that the actual words have got in the way. According to the Daily Mail, Mr. Prescott was photographed as the QE2 sailed from Southampton before heading for retirement duty as a floating hotel in Dubai. Best use for him. During the summer, the Cornish Liberation Army called for a huge show of strength at a rally, and 1 man turned up. What does the Sun newspaper call the Cornish Liberation Army?
The Cornish Liberation Army.
They call it the URA. Of course, unlike the real
It's not
IRA.
Somerset, isn't it?
It's West. Abby Titmuss had a succession of underwhelming turnouts when she went for various book signings around the country this summer. Like to see a picture of the book signing in Manchester?
Yes.
There it is. But things took a distinct turn for the ugly in Glasgow.
Oh, no.
She looks very pleased.
She looks very frightened. I've got a friend who, whenever you mention Abby Titmuss, he always says, "and a prosperous new year."
In London, there were just 3 men in the queue. To spare them embarrassment, we've concealed their identities. And now, to cause them embarrassment, we've revealed them. Time now for the Missing Words round, which this week features as its guest publication Scrabble Club News. In this issue, an article contains a list of qualifiers for the National Scrabble Championships, which includes Kwaku Sapong, or, as he's known to his friends, 423 on a triple word score. And we start with door thief, piglet rustler, pudding snatcher, what?
Countdown host.
Is it, ladies and gentlemen, Vanessa Feltz?
Is it courts get extradition requests? All these
That's
weird
right, yes,
foreign...
yeah, that's absolutely right. UK courts despair. UK courts are being swamped by trivial requests for extradition. Door thieves are easy to catch, but not so easy to hold on to. As soon as the police lock them in their cell, they tend to reoffend. Next, I attached the Rhinite to an E for Erronite, opening up the possibility of a 9-timer play, where my opponent could play an 8-letter word between 2 triples utilising the E that I'd played, which in fact resulted in my opponent...
Featuring in the longest headline of all time.
Is it moving to Shropshire?
Is it winning?
It is, yes, winning the game. Like so many Scrabble players, what he really needs to get is an L, an I, an F, and an E. Next, helpfully, Brett Smitheram will what during the National Scrabble Championships?
Sober up.
Change his name.
Control his murderous tendencies. To lash out when he's got a bad vowel hand. Explain the rules.
Yes, that's right, yes, he'll explain the moves. Also in Scrabble Club news, we learn that the National Scrabble Championship plate was won by Diane Pratesi, Mauro Pratesi and Jessica Pratesi. So if you learn nothing else this evening, don't ever spend Christmas at the Pratesis. Next, space. It smells of what?
Patrick Moore.
Is it Uranus?
Curry.
It is...
You should be ashamed
I'm
of your...
sorry. I thought I'd got away with it. There was a long pause.
It is steak. No wonder the Americans were so determined to get there first. So the final scores are... Ian and Frank have 7, Paul and Kevin have 8.
Oh, well done.
But before we go, there's just time for the caption competition.
I'm sure there's more to being a lesbian than this, Maureen.
And I leave you with news that, deciding to enjoy life to the full, a recently retired John Prescott decides to take up sailing with a friend.
I had to ring him up, Prescott, about Tracy Temple, and...
Oh, how did that go, that call?
Not so well for him. Actually, yeah, I had these photographs of him, and she was undoing his shirt. And I said, well, Deputy Prime Minister, I'm looking at this picture, and you know, Tracy Temple is undoing your shirt at a party. He said, well, Kevin, you've been to parties. What's that prove? Not parties like that, I haven't.
In West London, a complacent David Cameron misjudges a speed bump. And in Wall Street, New Yorkers gather together to show solidarity with the banking community. Good night.
Coming up on BBC Two, a tortured musical genius on trial for his life. Phil Spector's first TV interview in 35 years. No holds barred. Next.
This must have been a very long show when Gareth Gates hosted it.
Not as long as when Neil Kinnock hosted it. In a parallel universe, that show's still being recorded.